So, good morning, everyone. Uh, Last class, we discussed some of the filtering circuits which are used in signal conditioning. Remember, we have studied initially the sensor transducers, then we started learning what are the signal conditioning devices. In signal conditioning, we studied various types of amplifiers, and now some protective circuits we studied, and now we are into filtering circuits. And in those filtering circuits, we have studied low frequency pass filters and high frequency pass filters in the last class. Now today we'll study two more filtering circuits. Just an overview we'll have of these two filters, and then we'll go in for some of the conversion circuits. So these conversion circuits are also signal conditioning devices, because the raw signal that we get from sensor transducer needs to be modified as per the requirements of controller and actuator. Okay, so just to refresh our memory, low pass filter is a filter which allows lower frequencies to pass forward. Whatever signal I am receiving from the sensor transducer, it's a mixed signal. Whatever cutoff frequency I decide, and the signal smaller than or signal prior to that lower cutoff frequency will only be allowed to pass to your controlling circuit or actuating devices. So that is low pass filter we studied. Then we studied high pass filter, that is high frequency band pass filter. So what frequencies will be allowed from high pass filter? From the cutoff value of the frequency is higher than the cutoff value of that signal, cutoff value of that frequency. So higher frequency signals will be allowed to pass further. The lower frequencies will be damped, or it will be removed or blocked. Okay, that is high pass filter. Now next type is band pass filter. Now sometimes my requirements are such that I am not interested in lower frequency band. I am not interested in higher frequency band, but I am interested only in the band between this high frequency and low frequency. So as you can see in the sketch, so this is the signal that is transmitted in the frequency. So I'm not interested in this lower frequency band. I'm not interested in the higher frequency band, but still that signal is coming continuously. But my band of interest is the frequencies between this lower cutoff and higher cutoff. So this will be my passage band. So remaining signals will be chopped off. This lower frequency signal will be chopped. The higher frequency signal will be chopped. So only the frequency in the band pass or pass band, only within this range, will be allowed to be transmitted further, either to the controller or to the microprocessor or to the actuator, whatever is the case. So this is called as band pass filter. So only the small band of frequency will be allowed. Lower frequencies will be chopped and higher frequencies will be chopped. So in some applications, we need to filter a particular band of frequency from a wider range of mixed signals. If such is the requirement, we're going for band pass filter. So normally these band pass filters are combination of my low pass filter and high pass filter, isn't it? So if you combine and decide the frequency band, only the band between the low pass and high pass will be allowed. For this purpose, the properties of low pass and high pass filter circuits can be combined to design a filter which is called as band pass filter. Band pass filter can be developed by connecting a low pass filter and a high pass filter in series. So things are very clear. So in a band pass filter, I allow the signal What signals we allow? The signals between the lower passage frequency and higher passage frequency. So only this band, the passage band, the frequencies within this range only will be allowed. This is called as band pass filter. Now, next one is band reject filter, the opposite of that. So what is my requirement here? The signal that I am receiving, I want only the initial part of the signal. I don't want the mid portion of the signal. I want only the later part. So I want the signal within this low frequency band, and I want the signal beyond this high frequency band, and I want to reject the signal in between. Then I'll be using band reject filter. So the rejection will be from this cutoff lower frequency to cut in higher frequency. So this signal will be chopped or rejected, and only the lower band frequencies and higher band frequencies only will be allowed. So this is called as band reject filter. So which band is rejected? This in between band. Lower frequency band is allowed, higher frequency band is allowed, and the frequency band in between is rejected. So this is the passage band and this is the passage band. Okay. And in between band is rejected frequency band. Okay, so this is a band reject filter. So what could be the requirement? Ashi kashi requirement asu shakel, isn't it? One must think like that. See, if you take the same signal that is shown, I am receiving the signal which is dying out after a certain time, and once again it is picking up. So what I am interested is when the frequencies and their amplitudes are higher, I want to have that signal alone. I don't want a dying signal, so to say. A dead signal, a dying signal, I don't want. So I can reject those signals, and I can pick up only high amplitude and high frequency signal, the high amplitude and low frequency signal. Right. So that way, depending on the requirement of my actuating circuitry, my microprocessor circuitry, my controller circuitry, I can use band reject filter. These filters pass all frequencies above and below a particular range set by the operator or the manufacturer as per the need of the application. They are also known as band stop filters or notch filters. So remember such things, these will be asked in your MCQs. Band reject filters are also called as flying filters, dying filters, notch filter, none of the above. So band reject filter is also called as notch filter. So like that there can be MCQs also. So band reject filters are also called as notch filter. Simple to remember, when I got a notch like signal, that notch part will be rejected, and hence the name notch filter, isn't it? They are constructed by connecting a low pass and high pass filter in parallel. So this can also be one more MCQ question. Band reject filter can be obtained by connecting low pass filter and high pass filter in A series, in B parallel, C series and parallel, D none of the above. So for band reject filter, low pass filter and high pass filters are connected in parallel, and whereas band pass filter, you have low pass filter and high pass filter connected in series. In band reject, low pass and high pass filters are connected in parallel. So these four types of filters, of course there are many number of filters, we are not much interested. As I said earlier also, we are basically mechanical engineers, we are learning mechatronic applications. We are not expected to design many more electronic circuits. But as a mechatronics engineer, we should know what are the signal conditioning requirements, where conversions are required, where comparisons are required, where A to D conversion is required, where filtering is required, where such type of signal conditioning requirements we should be able to identify, and at least what each component does, that should be very clear to us. How it does, let us not get into those details because we are not pure electronics engineers. But at least the application part of it, use part of it, and some important details of those components we should know. Okay, we'll move further. In the conversion circuitry, we are going to study few conversion circuits. Wheatstone bridge, we have seen this Wheatstone bridge earlier while studying the strain gauge load cell, if you remember. Then this is new one, pulse amplitude modulation, pulse width modulation, we'll see, and some A to D converters and some D to A converters we'll study in the coming lectures. Today we'll start with our Wheatstone bridge circuit. As you remember, Wheatstone bridge we used in the strain gauge application. If you just recollect, or you can, after the lecture, you can refer back our PPT on strain gauge load cell. Okay, there we described some of the details of Wheatstone bridge, and then I said, anyway, we'll be discussing Wheatstone bridge in details in signal conditioning, right? There, if I just recollect, we had studied the strain gauge bridges, if you remember. One arm bridge. What was one arm bridge? One arm sensitive bridge or quarter bridge we called. One of the four arms. Wheatstone bridge, as we all know, has the four arms. Those are connected as a bridge. That's why it is called as a resistance bridge. So four resistances at the in the four arms and four apex points. Across two apex points, we nodal points we give supply voltage, and across the remaining two nodal points we take out the voltage, isn't it? If one of the arms of the Wheatstone bridge is sensitive to strain gauges, we call it as single arm bridge or quarter bridge. If two arms or two arm resistances are removed and replaced by two strain gauges, we call such a circuit as two arm sensitive bridge or half bridge. And the third category was when all the four resistances of all the four arms of the Wheatstone bridge are replaced by four strain gauges. So each of the arms of the Wheatstone bridge, instead of resistances, it will have strain gauges that we called as a full bridge circuit, or we call it as four arm sensitive bridge. And we also saw that in the four arm bridge circuit, the output voltage is 4 times that of quarter bridge, and it is 2 times, output voltage is 2 times that of the half bridge. That means 4 arm bridge is the most sensitive of the three configurations. What are the three configurations? Single arm bridge, 2 arm bridge, and 4 arm bridge. So what does it mean? 4 arm bridge is most sensitive. What does it mean? For the same induced strain in the strain gauge, 4 arm bridge gives me maximum voltage output compared to single arm bridge and 2 arm bridge. So this is what we study just after the lecture. You refer back our notes on strain gauge load cell, and we'll see how this Wheatstone bridge is used as a conversion circuit. Why it is called as a conversion circuit? After discussing load cell application, what it is doing, what I am practically doing, I am trying to measure the strain in the component. Now the strain in the component which is induced in my specimen component is transferred to my strain gauges first. So what does that happen? What does that mean? The strain of the component, strain on the component is transferred to the strain gauge. What is a strain gauge? Strain gauge is a thin conducting resistance wire. So that strain gauge is also subjected to resistance change. Now that resistance change. So what is the transduction here? The strain that is change in length to original length is strain. So change in length is getting converted into change in resistance. So this is the sensing and transduction part in the strain gauge. And thereafter, I connect this strain gauge to one of the arms of the Wheatstone bridge. So what the Wheatstone bridge does now? The Wheatstone bridge converts this change in resistance into voltage change of the bridge, isn't it? If you just remember, we provided 6 volts DC voltage to this bridge, and because of the change in resistance, there will be voltage change across the output terminals of the bridge. So across the output terminals, I either use a voltmeter or a multimeter. I measure the output voltage, which will be of the range varying from microvolt to few microvolts to few millivolts. Okay. So that output volt, why I'm getting the output voltage? Because the bridge has become unbalanced. In the balanced condition of the bridge, what will happen? The output voltage will be 0. Because all the resistances are either equal or the ratios of resistances is same. R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4. This is called as condition of balancing. That will derive in the next slide. So initially the bridge is balanced. Once the strain gauge is subjected to strain, there is resistance change. As the resistance changes, the bridge becomes unbalanced. As the bridge becomes unbalanced, I start getting the output voltage. So what kind of conversion is happening through Wheatstone bridge? Resistance change is getting converted to voltage change. Now this voltage that I am getting, maybe I am getting some analog voltage. By using one A to D converter, I can convert it into the digital voltage, okay, which is to be displayed, let us say. So this is how we have already studied this Wheatstone bridge. We'll do some analytical part with Wheatstone bridge. 2 expressions we need to derive. Simple expressions are there. As I just now told you, condition for bridge balancing, that is R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4, we need to derive. Second, the expression for output voltage. Okay, so Wheatstone bridge configuration already described. Just to recollect, first expression we'll try to derive. Friends, please take out a piece of paper, have a pen, draw this circuit. Please do it so that you will understand it easily. Because as we all know, listening and reading can help us in detail very small. If you start doing something, you can remember it very fast. You can understand it also very fast. Please take a piece of paper and pen. Write down Wheatstone bridge configuration, expression for condition for bridge balancing. Draw this Wheatstone bridge. Simple Wheatstone bridge. It has got 4 apex points, A, B, C, D, and in between, this is called as the arm of the bridge. Arm AB, arm AD, arm DC, and arm DC. Draw these resistances R1, R2, R3, R4. Don't miss out on the sequence because the expression is based on this type of representation. No harm in writing this as R2, writing this as R3, this as R2. No problem. But accordingly, we have to derive the expression. Now, this expression is derived by considering R1 here, R2 here, R3 here, and R4. Okay. So across 2 apex points A and C, I am giving the input voltage Vs, input DC voltage Vs. Vs corresponds to supply voltage. And as I said, I can give 5 volt DC or 6 volt DC as the input voltage. And across these apex points B and D, I take the output. Okay, so I can show like this also, I can show like this. So V0 is my output voltage, Vs is my input voltage. Okay, Rahul, just stop projecting yourself, stop presenting. Rahul Bandai, yeah. Thank you. So you have this input voltage Vs and you have output voltage V0 across this. So just focus here now. Don't look here. First of all, understand this Wheatstone bridge. So current I is flowing here, and then this current I is getting breaking into two arm currents. One is I1 and the other is I2. I'll just take one annotation. Pointer, spotlight. I'll select. Okay. No, I'm not selected the spotlight. Spotlight. Okay. So see here, friends. Now current I1 is flowing in this arm where R1 is there. Current I2 is flowing across this arm AD, which is I2. This is I1 and I2. Okay. So what is happening now? Let us see the initial case. The resistance R1, R2, R3 and R4 are same. So the bridge is, let us say, initially balanced. What will be there? There will not be any voltage across B and D. What does that mean, friends? The potential at B is same as potential at D. That means that there is no potential difference across B and D. That means there is no voltage across B and D. So once there is no voltage or no potential difference, no current will be flowing between B and D, isn't it? So zero voltage at output initially. So what does that mean? Potential at B is equal to potential at D, isn't it? So whatever current is flowing through R1, the same current will flow through R2 also, isn't it? Because the current is not flowing across B and D. Whatever current is flowing through R1, the same current will flow through R2 also. Now, this is also same, isn't it? Same potential. Whatever current is passing through, I2 is passing through R3. Same R3, I2 will be passing through R4 as well. Okay, let us start. Now start doing. The Wheatstone bridge can be used to convert a resistance change to a voltage change. When output voltage V0 is 0, then the potential at B must equal that at D. That's what I said. The potential difference across R1, let us say call it as potential drop. Let us call this as potential drop across R1 is VAB. Potential drop across AB must then be equal to potential drop across R3, isn't it? R3. Potential drop across AB should be equal to potential drop across AD. Why? Why potential drop across AB should be equal to potential drop across AD? See, just now we said when the bridge is balanced, potential at B is equal to potential at D. So B and D are at same potential. And A is a common starting point. So whatever is the potential drop across AB, the same potential drop will be there across AD also, isn't it? Is that clear? A is a common point, so same potential. B and D are at same potential. So VAB will be equal to VAD. Now what is VAB? Potential drop across AB. According to Kirchhoff's voltage law, potential drop will be equal to I into R. So I1 R1. So VAB is equal to VAD. So VAB is I1 into R1, VAB is I1 into R1, and VAD is equal to I2 into R3. So this is my first equation. VAB is equal to VAD. So that is VAB is I1 R1 is equal to I2 R3. This is my equation number 1. It also means that the potential difference across R2, that is VBC, must equal that across potential drop across R4, that is VDC. Why? Once again, the same logic. Potential at B is equal to potential at D. So both B and D are at same potential. And C is a common receiving point. So C is a common point. So that's why VBC will be equal to VDC. Since there is no current through BD, why the current will flow? When the current will flow between B and D? When either B is at higher potential than D, the current will start flowing from B to B. If D is at higher potential than B, current will start flowing from D to B. And as both are at same potential, there will be no current flowing across B and D. The same current I1 will flow here, the same current I2 will flow here. Okay, then the current through R2 must be same as that through R1, and current through R4 the same as that through R3. Thus, what is the expression then? VBC is equal to VDC. What is VBC? Same current I1, I1 into R2, I1 into R2, and same current I2, I2 into R4 is VDC. VBC is equal to VDC. So I1 R2 is equal to I2 into R4. This is my equation number 2. Dividing equation 1 by equation 2 gives us I1 gets cancelled. R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4. R1 by R2, R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4. Equation number 3 is called condition for bridge balancing or condition for initial balancing of the bridge. Now, one more thing to be remembered, a bit finer part. Now, how we have taken the ratio? I have taken the ratio from R1 to R2. Please be attentive. I have taken the ratio from R1 to R2, R1 by R2. Now, I need to take the ratio R3 and R3 by R4 also in the same sense. From left to right, if I am taking the ratio, left to right, R1 by R2, I should take left to right, R3 by R4 to make the condition meaningful. Now, if I take the ratio R1 by R3, R1 by R3, what I'm doing, I'm coming from top to bottom, R1 by R3, top to bottom. Then the remaining two resistances, I should take the ratio from top to bottom only, R2 by R4, the same condition we obtain. So these two finer points you must remember. By mistake, even if you have changed the names of the resistances, don't worry. Whatever sense in which you are taking one ratio, you should take the other ratio also in the same sense. What do you mean by same sense? If I'm taking the ratio from top to bottom, that is top to bottom means top to bottom R1 by R3. The other ratio also I should take from top to bottom, that is R2 by R4. Or what is the other meaning of sense? If I'm taking the ratio from left to right, R1 by R2, the other ratio also I should take from left to right, that is R3 by R4. In both the cases, I get this condition for balancing, initial balancing of the bridge. So this should be very clear to us. The next expression, that is expression for output voltage, we will take up tomorrow, that is next class. So just to recollect, condition for initial balancing. So here there is no output voltage, and in the second case, when I'm going to derive expression for output voltage, the bridge, I'm going to make the bridge unbalanced deliberately. Here I'm looking for condition for balancing, isn't it? So no output voltage here. But in the second derivation, we'll be having output voltage, because we are going to leave the bridge to be unbalanced, because our requirement in that second case is to convert that resistance change into voltage change and measure that output voltage, isn't it? So next class we shall study the expression for output voltage in the next class. Okay. So just to recap, we just saw the band pass filter today. Then we saw band reject filter, and then just we tried to recall the functioning of Wheatstone bridge. We just refreshed our single arm bridge configuration, 2-arm bridge configuration, and 4-arm bridge configuration. And then finally, we derived the expression for condition for bridge balancing, which is R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4. I think, friends, we shall stop for today. Next class.